here's my thought. Punctuation matters. In a previous life, I was a high school English teacher, so, punctuation was important, and I think it is, actually. I can remember years ago, I was in my office at 1848 East 1st Street, and on my wall was this plaque that's still on my wall, we can peel it off, that the ladies from the parish gave to me when I left as pastor. And so I was on the phone, and a very, very young T-Bone was reading this, and I could see him read it with great intent, and I'm on the phone. When I hang up, I said, "Do you like that?" He goes, "Yeah, I like that." I said, "Well, tell me, what's the part you like the most?" This line right here. "I was a stranger, and you invited me in naked." So let's take a look at it again. "I was a stranger, comma, and you invited me in, semicolon, naked, and you clothed me." He was all excited because he thought it was all about knocking on a door and someone would greet you naked. Punctuation matters, I was listening on NPR, the Cardinal of Boston was preaching at the funeral of, I think the 8-year-old boy who was killed in the Boston Marathon bombing. And he said with great emphasis, death is not a period, it's a comma. And I thought, well, that's right. It's not a period, it's a comma. But I think that's also true about life. Life is not a period, it's a comma. What does a comma say? Keep going. You're not done yet. And that's kind of important. You can say things like, "I am a felon, period." No. I'm a felon, comma. And I'm a whole lot more than the worst thing I've ever done, period. Or maybe in your own mind, in your own thinking, standing in front of a judge who's sentencing you, you say, "Yeah, I did what you say I did, comma, but I'm not who you say I am, period." That's important. Sometimes it's necessary to use a comma, a period, to kind of make something give it emphasis, like, "I am a human being, period." I think that's important. But everybody knows that you can't judge a book by its cover, but you also can't judge a book by its first chapter. Keep going. You're not done yet. But sometimes we want to live in this kind of period world, I remember a homie who worked for me came back from seeing his probation officer, and he said, "Yeah, I think my PO will never let me off probation." I said, "Why?" "Well, we got into it right now." I said, "What happened?" "Well, he said to me, 'You're a loser, period, and you'll never amount to anything, period.'" I said, "Wow, he said that to you? What did you say to him?" I said, "Your mom's a basehead, period." "Yeah, I don't think he's going to be letting you off probation anytime soon." Comma says, keep going. You're not done yet. There was a homie who worked for me named Abel. Here's a picture of him. And he was a young kid, and he was a poet. Not only did he have a poetic soul, he was an actual poet. He was always writing poetry. And the poems were filled with sometimes rage, and sometimes the poems were filled with delight, but they were always filled with commas. And there was a time when he said to me, "I've decided to get up early every day now." And so he did, and he was always the first one at the office at 1960 East 1st Street. And one day he was waiting for me, and I usually was the first one to open the office. And he was there about 7:30 in the morning, and he was just standing there, and the crash car drives by, and he kind of shifts nervous, and he goes to the door to kind of see, has anybody unlocked this from inside without me knowing, and no, they hadn't. Crash car makes a U-turn. And the guy on the passenger side, the cop, yells at him, "Who you mad dogging?" And he said, "I'm not mad dogging anybody." "You don't get to mad dog us," screaming at him. And he said, "I'm not mad dogging anybody." And he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I work here. I'm waiting for Father Greg." And he says to him, "Father Greg ain't shit, period. And neither is this place, period." And he didn't say anything. And then I drove up, and the cops drove away. He was reluctant to tell me about what happened, but he finally did. But he didn't let it penetrate him, because he just didn't allow anybody to put a period or a comma belonged. I'm not done. Keep going. And I remembered that when I buried him a couple months after that, he was a poetic soul who knew that death was not a period, it was a comma, but he knew that life was the same thing. You're not done. Keep going. And don't let anybody put a period or a comma belongs. Punctuation matters. God, lead us in prayer.